I'd like to chime in on that, but and from my understanding, you're saying you're not saying the immediate family. You're saying men in the community. Like if we know a man in the community violated somebody, you're saying that you're calling for these men to come stand up as leaders and do something about this dude or this issue, right?
Most of the time, it's not community. It be people in the family.
Well,
I think it's important
that's
to bring back shame, like men shaming other men for
oh,
going
it's important to
against
bring
proper
back
morals.
shame on other men, but when we talk about bringing back other, nah, I ain't gonna do that. But look,
Because
That's a
you know
different. That's
why,
like
Carmen?
jail.
Because
That
men,
ain't shame.
that's
That's
hold
men,
on, but
men
look,
respect other men. Y'all don't play with men the same way y'all play with women. I'm gonna tell you about an interesting conversation I had the other day. I was just out charging my car. I was having some lunch. Just so happened to sit next to this guy. He was celebrating his birthday. He did 10 years in prison, Mexican guy. And we had a conversation, and he was like, "It feels good to be home. I'm so glad to be able to celebrate my birthday free." We're just having a little conversation. And he was telling me about how in prison, how bad they do somebody in when they go to prison for violating women, children, or elderly. If you violate anybody who is less vulnerable than you're getting it. And they wait on you because the Mexicans out here in California, I don't know if y'all know much about prison, but out here in California, the Mexicans run the prison. And they said they know your rap sheet before you even hit the yard. And they waiting like this. They waiting like this for you. And he said the main reason why, that's the thing, he said, because if you hard and you want to hurt somebody or harm somebody, violate and harm somebody that's on your level. You not that hard if you know how to manipulate and violate and touch on a kid or beat a woman up or knock her upside her head or knock her down the steps and kill her. You tough then, right? So when you get to prison, come meet Big Larry and Big Ben. They waiting on you.
see, I understand that, but the difference is the jail, the prison system, the population in the prison is an actual community that operates on a one accord. They operate according to a standard. They're allowed from the staff to police each other in there. And they might not expose, the COs might not expose that they're allowing the inmates to do that, but they have a system. They have a structure to how they deal with certain people, and they turn their heads whenever it's time to deal with these people. But when we talk about the outside community, I'm gonna call it the black community. We're not operating like that.
You don't feel like the four of y'all right now could get each one of y'all have 5 friends and they have 5 friends and they have 5 friends. And now you have a community of men that hold each other accountable. So guess what that ties back into? When Ty started out saying, where can we go find these good men? Now we can go to that community of good men that are being held accountable, that we know are educated, that we know are active fathers. And that's where we can go and get these good men, because it started with the four of y'all. And if everybody that does content that claims to be this good upstanding man started something like that, you'd have a bunch of groups of good men holding each other accountable, being able to be partners, be active fathers, identify bad men, help us vet bad men, get rid of other bad men that are going to continue to be bad to the single women and to your daughters that are growing up. I don't think that that's crazy. It's the
Are you
same
saying
concept as a fraternity.
are you saying that we should? All right, so and Ray asked a fair question. She said, "What would we do in situations regarding?"
No, but
Hold on,
Ray,
wait. I was trying to some interrupted my ear. But
Lisa, hold on, but let me say this, Sweeney, real quick. You're talking about us 4 men. This is more like a virtual community. I think what Ray was talking about is repercussion, physical repercussion in person. I think what Tim White was talking about was pulling up on you and dealing with you in person. Our
No, that's what I'm
community,
saying.
our
If the four
community.
of people
Well,
made
I
four
get
more
that. Our
people.
community policing only go as far as we can reach virtually. But if me, Trav, Sweeney, and M White lived in the same demographics, the same location, or something like that, and then I can vibe with that. but we
No,
don't.
I think she was saying you with your friends that you personally know. not
That's what I'm
you.
saying. If the 4 of y'all then make 4 groups wherever y'all make those groups, like I look at it like this: fraternities start in one place, and then I'm not just an Omega or an Alpha or a Delta at Southern University, but I'm also known as that when I go into every other city, because now we've branched out to so and so that I know is a good person in this city and that city, and they've started that group too. And now their homeboy also started that group wherever they live. That's what I'm saying. I'm
I
saying
understand
it's a
what you're saying.
community effort.
I understand what you're saying. The only problem with what you're saying is we don't. The men that you want to go ahead and strong arm to be the reinforcement, we don't have control over that said community. We don't have control over the women. In most cases, we don't have control over the children. So how are we supposed to be reinforcers to a woman and a child that won't even yield to us our authority?
You're reinforcing the men. That's why I said if more men
I
would
understand.
play,
So if a man coming,
more men would play in the men lane and get out of women business and start focusing on the men and the predators in the community and focus the resources and the energy and the microscope and the lens, focus it on the men because they out here violating
I think
kids.
M. White just spoke to. He
So,
just said that if a man violates somebody in his family, they got
Still,
somebody that's gonna
That
root
needs to
out
be
his
the
Right.
family.
collective. That needs to be the collective energy amongst.
But it can't.
So,
But
so,
on my
so check
only
this
thing
out.
is, go ahead, Trav.
All right, look. So
Everybody got excuses why they can't get.
here's no. Hold on a moment. What I want y'all to dig, right, is that there is almost no man who would respect or advocate for men abusing people who are less vulnerable. We don't play that shit. Not as far as SA, not as far as physical abuse. I think those type of men are cowards and they should be dealt with by any means, right? If you touch one of mine, you already know what it is. I have the same sentiment as Marcus. But even if I witness it, I'm not with that shit. If I see people looking at young girls and shit like that, I shut that shit down too. I don't play none of that, right? I don't agree with anyone who is vulnerable being violated. I've done videos on this already and I call people out. I don't care who you are. I do it, right? If it ain't going down in my presence. The problem is a lot of these guys that are doing this, there are a lot of times they're loners. They might be weirdos. They don't interact with a lot of cats. And even if they know, they understand that it's not, even if they are somebody who's social, they understand that shit is not accepted. They keep it to themselves. By the time you figure out they violate, they already going to jail and probably going to get dealt with by the Mexicans, right? So that's just what it is. They're not like out here in the open where you could see them. It's hard to spot these dudes. When we catch it, we nip it in the bud. That's just what it is. If we see it, we squashing that shit, right? And I've been an advocate for women in that space where it's like, no, I don't believe in abuse. And it's tons of videos of me calling out these men for being cowards and abusing women or children in any way. None of us stand for that shit. And I'll try to work with women with that. You know what I mean? I've protected women in several ways, physically, in real life. I've done that. I've dealt with situations, right? We're not going to get into the specifics, but I don't play that shit. And I also encourage men to not play that shit. And I will vouch for every guy, at least on this panel right here. I know ain't nobody on here standing for that shit.